welcoming everybody. This is Monday, the 10th of July, 2023. I am Christine Bundy on Gibson County, Indiana, State Coordinator and Lead Recording Secretary for the Indiana Assembly. And we want to go ahead and start real quick with taking a moment of silence to honor our Creator. All right, I will get my presentation up here and get the camera situated, and we'll get things rolling here. Let me see if I can switch this now to display. Okay, maybe if I screen share. Oh, let's see, hold on. All right, because I want to make sure we get, yes, okay. So if I go back here, we'll go ahead and get our Bivens decision in. Should show to, oh, yeah, okay. All right, this meeting is private. Bearing false witness, misrepresentation, and posting inflammatory rhetoric in public forums is forbidden and shall be addressed in an appropriate manner. To eliminate all conflicts and false allegations, is there anyone in attendance at today's meeting that is a member or agent of any law enforcement agency or public agency of the federal, state, county, city, or township agencies present? Please post your response in the chat. And I'm not sure if there's any in the chat, but we'll go ahead, but do go ahead and post it in the chat. We'll go ahead, hearing none. Any response to the Bivens decision for the second time? Hearing, and hopefully if you are, you will have responded in the chat. For the third and final time, is there a response to the Bivens decision? Okay, hearing none. Furthermore, anyone who is here under false pretenses, anyone who is working for any foreign government, including the territorial United States or municipal United States, anyone who is being paid or coerced to be here, must fully disclose their presence and purpose now or leave the premises or call. All right, just want to remind everybody here right now, these are the social media platforms that we're using: Locals, Odyssey, Rumble, YouTube. If I'm not able to get it to work with technology for it to be alive, the video gets uploaded afterwards. If you do know of other platforms that that you do follow that do take accept live stream and chat functions, go ahead and send an email and we can work out seeing to get those in. All right, and I gotta stop a moment because that doesn't have my, hold on just a moment. Get this up because this was only the other part, not the printed version. Hold on, because this would be much better. And I also have the link to this PowerPoint, but on each of the social media sites that we have. All right, this, oh my goodness, where is that? Oh, here it is. Okay, this should be, no. Oh my goodness. I have my map.
Christine, right. I was just talking with a colleague moments ago saying it'd be really great if I had a secretary.
Right.
And you probably could use one too.
Oh, yeah. Really? Please, yes, because I do things on the on my laptop as well, and sometimes it doesn't always follow through. So hold on, hopefully I'll be able to get this pulled up here. Because I know I uploaded it over there, right? Certainly. All right, so I had a gorgeous map showing what the updating everything on the counties. I'll end up pulling that up later while you're talking for a few minutes. So that way at least it's an overview of what's going on. I can't believe all of this. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and stop at that point because it was only one slide anyway. All right, so I'm going to switch it back over to me. Hopefully that will be able to, and then we'll get that, and we'll just eliminate all of that technology. Maybe. Oh, come on. Oh, I still maybe have to go here.
And like I envisioned, Christine, this is a great opportunity just as an icebreaker, just to
Oh,
set
yeah,
some of the bedrock foundations of, and I can share with you also some of the other surrounding Area 4 states developments with you and your audience and your Indianans. So,
okay.
yeah, we'll just kind of have fun with this one, and I'm grateful to be here and grateful to have the opportunity. And whenever you want to get started, we can.
Whenever you are ready, you can go ahead. I guess right now a brief overview just to get us going would be the best starting point.
Well, I noticed over your left shoulder, Christine, you have a printout of the postal area, all of the postal areas.
Yep.
Yep, that's it. Uh-huh.
And we're right here.
Yep, yes, that's right. So am I, Kentucky. So for everybody and for the recording, I can't see everybody who's participating across multiple platforms here. But I'm the Chief Continental Marshal for Postal Area 4. Postal Area 4 out of 10 postal areas, 0 through 9. Postal Area 4 has Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, and Kentucky. And what's going on right now in all of the other areas is exactly what's happening in Postal Area 4 regarding international peacekeeping. It's a labor of love. It's slow, but consistent developments, progress, intricacies, details regarding all of the fine tuning and confirmation of that jurisdiction in particular. And so as you can imagine, and your audience can imagine, it's a tedious process. It takes immense amounts of focus and, as I say, confirmation as to the jurisdictions in relation to the land, the lay of the land, so to speak. So county, state, and then states, as in a region or a postal area, and then all of the continental United States, which are nations, as you know. So usually that's what happens within the Continental Marshal Service is questions coming from status corrected men and women and people from within the de facto inquiring as to what the Continental Marshals can provide and who would be their counterparts currently. And the Continental Marshal Service is endeavoring to be as the marshals or the maréchaussée, which is a French term that George Washington had utilized and Benjamin Franklin had put forth as an international, I would say, subordinate law enforcement to the local sheriffs on every county. I believe it's 3,143, maybe 42 counties established on our continent. And so, as you can imagine, being subordinate to and assistance directly with each county sheriff, likewise, that would be, at least one deputy sheriff for every county. One deputy continental marshal. Mm-hmm. And then the dynamic grows from there, where in the future, and that is what we are endeavoring to provide as well, each county having a continental marshal to assist the sheriff regarding international matters that bleed through onto and exiting their county. But that also takes a state chief for each state of the 50 states. And then that state chief, within that group, in that region, in this case, Area 4 has 4. So each state would have 1 state chief, helping to supervise and provide information dissemination to all of those county deputy continental marshals. And then every area also has a deputy chief continental marshal who assists the area chief. Okay, so I'll go from there and work myself back down. Area 4, as in all areas, all 10 areas, has the postal area chief continental marshal. That chief is a chieftain of 10, and they comprise of the joint, as a joint chief aspect, it's a military term, that helps advise the senior chief continental marshal, who's responsible for all of the facets of what the continental marshals provide onto all of the states. And then their deputy chief continental marshal for those areas assists with public relations, deals with the logistical environment now and in the future, assisting each state within those areas. Each state chief then subsequently assists with and monitoring each deputy continental marshal on every county. So how many counties for Indiana, Christine?
92.
Okay. So in the future, it's quite easy to envision. 52, you said? 92.
92. 9.
Okay, so not right. So, and this goes back again to helping to clarify the jurisdictional boundary. If Indiana, like Ohio or Kentucky, any of those states, within any of the postal areas that are suffering through, forced solicitation, dereliction of duty regarding jurisdiction from the de facto establishment, in this case would be de facto sheriffs and police chiefs, those men and women should strive to focus on what they're dealing with, on top of being, marginalized with their status correction, which is an immense lifestyle change. Okay. And then the fact that they themselves are nationals who has no allegiance to serve their state, but they do deserve the respect and recognition for who they are by virtue of the fact that they're Americans. Mm-hmm. So what each state has to do, and is suffering from, Indiana, I'm sure, is no exception, that each member within your assembly comes from a county. Let's say you have 20 or 25 people that may frequent your calls, or who's reported and has corrected their status. It could be dozens, if not hundreds. Well, they all come from various counties. So what we're grappling with, what you grapple with, a lot of coordination deals with people who are maybe scrambling to try to help to remedy and progress forward as Americans, no longer U.S. citizens or citizens of the United States. So it seems to be maybe a bit of a catch-22, I would say, maybe, or it's maybe a misunderstanding or a series of misunderstandings. But the people need to realize that once they stand up, I would say as a sheriff, I think that would probably be, and it's almost a foregone conclusion at this point, Christine, that for true effect in this capacity, for each state to gain their recognition, first of all, is to correct their status, obviously. Then to join their jural assembly, to enter into the jury pool. That's state citizens, state nationals, both. Okay, and then if they may choose to move forward from there, if they have a stellar coordinator like yourself, still they need county coordination from each of the 92 counties. Well, simultaneously, multiple things are taking place at this point as a state national owner county. And as you know, early on, the state coordinators were kind of in a position where they had to take on multiple roles, even in the interim. Well, a sheriff can do that very same thing. And if we're trying to breach this catch-22, this feeling from some of your assembly members now or in the past or in the future, they'll need to realize that they uphold the peace. They maintain the peace. They cause no injury, cause no loss, and allow no swindle. Well, that takes peacekeepers. Okay, not just themselves in their on their homestead and within their community, but somebody eventually must step forward to be the one who shines that beacon of peacekeeping, lawful peacekeeping. So that's a massive step, I would say, for a lot of people to do. Now the thing is, which is brilliant, and it's the layers of peacekeeping that the American experiment has provided, is your Continental Marshal Service. Okay, so this is where we are at this point. I've had this same conversation with multiple state assemblies who are, perhaps maybe a little less developed. The Indiana Assembly, or maybe a little more, maybe on par. But they after multiple meetings with the Assembly, they start to really piece these things together, because in a lot of instances, many members of your body politic are that close to realizing that indeed there needs to be a peacekeeper on that county. And then they realize, okay, well, what are the moving parts with this? Who steps up? How does the county sheriff get elected if they're the only person, or the lawful person on their county? Well, and so those are great questions, and they're simple once they're discussed, and follow-up questions are to confirm that indeed it's much more simple than many people think. The going consensus nationwide for years has been, the Americans need peacekeeping. They need, as they call, boots on the ground, but it's not boots on the ground. It's just a man or woman standing up, willing to take the outreach a bit further than themselves, which was their status correction, their self-determination of removing themselves out of the realm that they thought was the American experiment, which wasn't. And so anyway, so here we are. And Postal Area 4, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, Michigan, has international peacekeeping elements all throughout all 4 states. There are a couple of postal areas to our west, Area 5, Area 6, Area 7. If you look at your map, you can see where they are on all those states. Yeah. Postal Area 7 coming out of Texas soon will be online. Yep. So Area 5 and 6 will be, and Area 0, which is at the top, North England. Yep. Those are the only areas that does not yet have the international peacekeeping capacity that we have now within all of the other areas. Okay, so the Continental Marshal Service can and will assist all sheriffs, whether that man or woman intends to be the sheriff. If they wonder how they can be the sheriff, they simply can be the sheriff. Yes, to establish the ability to arrest beyond a citizen's comprehension of an arrest or detention of a suspected crime. When they are recognized by their state and they're sponsored by their state, by virtue of being part of that state assembly, that county can be sponsored by the state assembly, and that man or woman can simply be the sheriff at that moment. That's called an interim sheriff. But yes, of course, eventually that same sheriff will have to be elected. But if there's no one there, no other man or woman on those counties, then that sheriff stands up, takes that outreach further, takes the purpose and intent of maintaining the peace and their capacity. The Continental Marshal Service can and will assist at that point. So it's not as, again, this is
I think a piece of that too is realizing that not just to say that you're the sheriff, it's having that willingness, the motivation, and the getting your butt up to go out to do the outreach that comes with it, not waiting for them to come to you as the sheriff.
Sure. Yeah. And I think a lot of people's imaginations may get the better of them. Maybe that's just the kind of the world we live in at this moment. But and it may be too much to ask from the mindsets of people who they came to terms with their need to correct their status, and then their minds may not venture too much further without further assistance. You know, we have on my county, we have other Americans who have corrected their status. But as I look out onto the landscape and see the assembly at the state level working diligently to build further, I look at my own county. I was like, wow, the county has a long way to go. Well, the thing is, the state doesn't have a sheriff. They do have international a police aspect, but they're subordinate to everybody. The sheriffs are under the sheriffs, assist with the continental marshal aspect, and assist within that state. State troopers. The Federation is maintaining that, preserving that asset, and making county troopers. Designing, restructuring the state troopers, which I admire. I've always admired the ability, because of the size of the roadways, the interstate airports, seaports, Naviquin waterways, interstate routes, U.S. routes, subterranean corridors. So that's a lot of ground to cover, and a sheriff who he or she is the face of peacekeeping, the elected peacekeeper who is at the town. They're at the township. They're at the courthouse. They're at the towns and county square. They're there, and their deputy sheriffs are out. And force multiplying the idea of the county sovereignty and the peacekeeping. So again, there are a lot of moving parts. Once everything is built up, it seems like a lot because it's a lot of cooperation, but it's really not very many moving parts. You'll have your sheriff, their deputies. That sheriff will have an international peacekeeper, a deputy continental marshal, and really that's it. And then yes, in the future you'll see state troopers assisting, and because troopers used to, I don't know if anybody realizes this, but and if it was always meant to stay this way, but of course it didn't. Troopers used to assist with emergency recovery on U.S. routes. They assisted EMS. They were themselves EMS, roadside recovery. If there was any fire destruction or anything along U.S. routes, and then later on interstate routes, they were there to assist. They assisted with escorting commercial vehicles and also dignitaries crossing those limited interstate routes, and that was what they did. But now, of course, they seem to be that of anyone who can go all over the state and do as they do in the capacity of a police officer. And so it's a little bit sad, but I mean, maybe that's how it goes when the Americans don't come in and reel these services in and maintain the best of what they used to be and discard the rest, I suppose. Okay. Do we have anybody else? Any questions on any of the other platforms?
So far, no questions on the platform. We do have a couple that are on the platforms, so we're not by ourselves.
Okay. Well, Christine, do you have any questions of me then? Based on what we've talked about?
The biggest thing is I'm noticing the first thought of militia is automatically assuming it's like the National Guard, therefore it's also like the Army, and they're not really understanding or getting clear as to what the militia aspect. It's more than just the peacekeeping aspect as well.
Oh, by far. Yeah. Well, if anybody who has conducted any any measurable due diligence regarding the militia at this point. A well-regulated, which means a well-equipped militia, is a well-equipped, well-educated community. And yes, a part of the militia would be that of who would assist in times of need for county defense. That same element could join with other surrounding counties for the same purpose, for county defense. It's not only county defense against robber barons or terrorists, any notion of terrorists. Of course, and if anybody does seem to lean towards the notion that it would be that of the National Guard, well, the National Guard has many, many aspects of itself. They have many, many specialties, not just the fact that they can work as a unit to take up arms against a would-be enemy. They provide water purification services, search and rescue, air-evac, medevacs. They can build bridges. They can many, many, many things, and that's reminiscent of what a community would provide anyway within itself. Out of uniform, no service weapons, no any kind of heavy machinery of any sort. And I think that has been inserted through maybe layers of predictive programming along the way, and false notions of what a true well-regulated militia is. I'll give you an example of an American militia, and Christine, if you're on Mattermost, anybody else here, the Peacekeeping Task Force, which I'm a direct part of at this point, have identified among the large spectrum of what a community can provide itself, offer to its community by virtue of itself, is that of a press corps. Now,
I've noticed that, yes.
yes. And the Federation, we looked around and said, well, can we highlight 150 aspects of what a militia can provide? Well, of course we can, probably many more than that, depending on the creativity and skill set and willingness within any given community, more or less, depending on the size of the community. So, but we chose one and said, okay, well, what is one that's constitutionally recognized, one that is in dire need of revitalization, and what would fit into a militia. So it didn't take us long to realize that we needed to focus on the press corps. It's the First Amendment of their Constitution, so why not, revitalize that and bring that forward? And so we have.
I think that's a great opportunity.
Right. Yeah.
I have just admitted someone into Zoom, so we've got someone else on the call here with us. They're still connecting in technology, so they'll get their camera and mic going when they get going. So maybe we'll be able to get another question or two in here. I have noticed, I know that the General Assembly isn't part of the militia, but the militia does support the General Assembly as well.
Yes, right. Now, and of course, the Federation of States has provided over the years several handbooks that are quite popular, recognized, updated even, to reflect kind of the vertical familiarity between the four pillars. And typically at this moment, as you know, Christine, a lot of action seems to take place around the General Assembly, just because of general purposes, I would imagine. It's very versatile pillar.
Right.
But once the state is up and running, by virtue of the counties getting spun up, working, building, the state General Assembly is less and less, becomes more seasonal, it deals with general aspects. But as you can imagine, and everybody can envision that, well-oiled machine, the general aspects of the government is less and less to be needed. Of course, it's still needed. It still functions, but it's less and less. Currently, it's more frequent, but yes. And the two out of the four that are synonymous, that typically have elections taking place and discussion driven by multiple communities, is the General Assembly and the General Assembly. Now, the remaining two, or the other pillar that seems to be tethered at the hip with the General Assembly is the militia. And that's that. As we've examined these many different perspectives, we've noticed that the General Assembly and Militia Assembly have a unique relationship. Okay, so, and then your business assembly is there where other dynamics take place regarding international business and trade. So, yeah.
This is Jeff on Marion County that has come into the call with us. He is awesome. And he's been doing well and keeping up with the information and everything. So Jeff, this is Joe.
Joe.
Did you have any questions while we're on the call?
Not at the moment, really.
You're just catching up, even just getting
I'm just catching up. I'm at work. Sorry. I'm just catching up. But it's nice to
at least you're trying. Thank you.
Self-governing.
Yes, absolutely.
All right,
well, we'll go ahead and keep going. And then if you do have a question, you can always raise your hand or pop it in the chat. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Jeff.
All right. Sure. You too. Okay, Christine, so I'll follow up this example regarding the relationship between General and Militia Assembly, having spawned from the General Assembly, but in particular, the tethering at the hip, so to speak, regarding General Assembly involvement and militia. But we discussed for the past 20 minutes or so how a sheriff can find themselves in a unique benevolent position to continue outreach in that lawful capacity as the law of the land interim ground level onto their county from within the pillars. Okay, so General Assembly meetings, yes, they happen weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, and then it doesn't take long before people start really getting interested in what takes the intricacies up within the other pillars. So the second stop, I guess you could say, after correcting one's status is the General Assembly. Because with or without a sheriff, there is no change that will take place on our American lands until the jury pool is established and the General Assembly courts are up and running. Well, the details from the General Assembly perspective beyond the jury pool is that of what we know as Federation criminal incident reports. The ongoing, or I wouldn't say it is ongoing. It's not a gross encroachment as the Federation has received reports, but it is continuous throughout the past 3 years or so, even with the development within the various 50 state assemblies, that there are still continuous trespasses that takes place. Well, this catch-22 is soon to be breached amongst all of the minds of the people. The more they frequent calls such as these meetings, asking questions and gaining a better perspective on what these 4 simple pillars have to offer them. But those same 4 pillars, it demands their assistance on some level. Okay, and that's there's really only 2 levels. There's that of a sovereign state national who chooses to join their jury pool. They're educated in common law. They're educated in the history, the true history, and they're waiting, eager, willing, and able to enter into a grand jury, or a trial by jury. And that's the other capacity of the General Assembly. But also in combination with the General and Militia Assembly, this is where your sheriff comes from. They derive from the existence of having corrected their status, having signed up as a eager member of the General Assembly as a juror, potential juror, and then entering that realm of, again, reaching out, expanding their horizons and their opportunities to serve the people and provide a exposure to the people around them lawfully, peacefully, honorably, and then they can move into their militia from the General Assembly and entertain the notion of being that lawful peacekeeper, standing up on their county, even if they're in the status of or a position of first, last man standing, standing up, saying, you know, I'm willing to entertain the notion of being that spokesman or woman for the lawful peacekeeper on their county. And then they can start realizing when they look around and they see, you know, that this is a lot of land. These are a lot of folks, and they don't know me. And I also have a sheriff over there that, you know, who knows how far away they are from, you know, gross misunderstandings of my status correction, my purpose of being here and assisting in maintaining the peace. And how does a land jurisdiction sheriff assist with keeping the peace? And those are all great questions. But then again, that's where the Continental Marshals comes in to assist in many ways with that development.
Another big issue that I've been running into is because all of this is really about getting clear on what discernment is, but many want their first thing is, we don't judge. How do you respond to those to even be able to start getting them to recognize that they need to participate with the General Assembly as well when they think that's judging?
Well, I don't know what they would mean. I would have to have an example by someone who puts that declaration forward there when they say they don't judge. To judge would be that of a ruler, and a ruler measures. And I tell you right now, I measure all aspects of my daily life. I have to. We all measure. You know, if I'm going to jump over that hill, I'm going to make sure you know, what's the distance? So what if I fall in? You know, so I think maybe it's maybe a bit of semantics, maybe a bit of maybe religious persuasion, because that sounds like a sentence fragment. We don't judge. I don't.
Right, because that's the first thing is the taking it right to the verse in the Bible of judge not lest you be judged. So that's their out of thinking they shouldn't participate with the General Assembly, even though trying to explain the different, you've got to understand we're learning discernment
right
in this.
Well, and it takes education, further education, continuous education. With respect to a jury pool, they do judge. That's what's unique, and that's what America has seemingly perfected coming from England, is that of a jury. And the shires, or the modern day sheriff, or the reeves, I'm sorry, under the shires or parishes, villages, kingdoms, various outskirts. America has seemed to have perfected that, because the reeves in England were were known as the kingsmen, and they were the law of the land of those shires, you know, and they were appointed by the king. Weren't elected by the people per se, but they were known by the people and trusted by the people, and they dealt with matters of the king's rule and their duties, you know, things that took place on those lands at that time. And what America has done has adopted the idea of a jury, who are judges. They judge the law and the facts of the matter. But today's jury pool is assisted by a sheriff who is no longer a kingsman or one king, but he or she is the law of the land for all of the kings. All of the kings. So they have our research has shown that, you know, like anybody would, you would think, who has they have goodness in themselves to take a good thing and try to perfect it if it's possible. And it does seem to be the case, because now the sheriff doesn't take their rules from any one king. They serve all of the kings and their estates on their county. So now, when a crime takes place, that same sheriff or reeve collects evidence and takes that evidence to a local grand jury, and those are judges, and they judge the law and the facts, which means they have to have facts. They must have, or evidences. They must have evidence, and facts certainly. Evidences will suffice because they have an investigation that takes place, and they need to know the law. So jurors are constantly in the process of learning, and even in a grand jury, because they will then determine if a true crime has taken place, and then they will put forth indictments, so forth, and they will hand that back to the reeve or the sheriff, and then move it into an actual court setting, and then move forward to seek justice properly. So yeah, I'm not fond of that sentence fragment.
Right.
I guess I would try to decipher
There's
it.
so many other roles that are part of it that are also not actually jurors as well, because it's all part of the jural assembly. You have the other roles as well, but at some point, hopefully, you're wanting to serve as a juror.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. And our best advice is if I mean, you probably don't have much. You've been around quite a while, Christine, and the other states are well aware of your capabilities. But I'm sure you would welcome much assistance and participation from other of your 91 counties, not counting your own, but yeah, I guess yours as well. But the people need to know that, those notions, judge not lest you be judged. I would have to decipher that as I should not judge any different than I would want myself to be judged. That sounds like that's what that passage is, but we have to judge. We have to measure. We have to, and that takes a willingness to be the one to do so.
Right.
So,
Jeff,
okay.
Did you have a question?
No.
Okay.
No. Thanks for asking. If I did, I'll hop in.
No. You're fine. I just wanted to give you an opportunity if you did. Well, at this point, I think that's all I have of questions, of main things that other than those that have remedies of like working with the credentials. It's all going to be more so of they've got to do their history, they do their homework, so that they also have that the ability to articulate.
Right. And Christine,
go ahead.
I have something with that, Christine, because there's a lot of assemblies that we've noticed that they have no issue. Life has not changed, certainly for the worse by any means, for many, many Americans. I mean, they go through their life and they realize not much around them has changed, but so it's neither good nor bad, I suppose. But of course, their estate is constantly being targeted for liquidation in many ways, and that's the proverbial bills.
Mm-hmm.
See, the loss of a job, and that job is working for a corporation or what have you. Those who haven't been able to untangle themselves from what they perceive as a tax obligations, federal or state, and so that's trouble is just around the corner for a lot of people. For those who haven't yet had any issues per se, but there's with that as a lull, if it would be considered as a lull or an opportunity to develop without any one de facto agency standing in one's way. It is troubling that some people haven't yet embraced their assemblies and what they're capable of at that point. But it does take time, and I'm willing to assist. I think this meeting is held every other week at 7 p.m. For how long, Christine? An hour?
However, yeah, for about an hour, I would say is usually pretty good. That way it's not too long, and everybody can still hopefully get to be on, listen to Anna's call later too. So.
Okay. Well, I've been on many assembly meetings, probably upwards of 20 over the past I would say 18 months. And once they've latched on to the notion of what they are capable of in any environment, they just start to really just take off in multiple directions, upwards,
Mhm.
And it's really encouraging. I don't know where Indiana is yet at this point, but I'm confident at this point, having witnessed those rapid developments in multiple ways, that Indiana, just like any other state, is going to be pleasantly surprised at what they're capable of. But I do have a question for you, Christine, on this
Okay.
one. So at the state level, does Indiana yet have a marshal at arms?
Nope.
A marshal at arms? Okay,
Nope.
so for the record and for you, we probably are
Right
well
now,
aware of
I'm
this.
the only office holder.
Okay. Well, then you and I are going to start having more questions. You and I go a few years back already. Anyway, when I was a state coordinator for Kentucky. But, okay, so great. Yeah, and again for the record, everybody, and Jeff, we'll carve out this time period, and we'll have many awesome micro discussions about a lot of pivotal moments. And
Looking
sit
forward
back
to it.
and wait. Yeah, sit back and wait, Christine, because you're going to be inundated. I know you're capable. Okay, so
Awesome.
okay, so the very next step would be, Christine, and for everybody, every function, every a summoned assembly with a coordinator who's a Federation officer. And Christine, by the way, I just want to say you're probably in the camp of many future coordinators who have stood the test of time to probably get your state election to go to Philadelphia as your state delegate. You probably know that too, but and early congratulations for you if that happens. So if I was from Indiana, I would cast my election for you that way. But,
Indiana has a lot in the history.
Right, it does.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So and coming from spawning from or couched within your juro assembly, the next logical step for any budding assembly is to elect a marshal at arms. So they are a state elected marshal at arms. They're comparable to but superior to the de facto or Washington D.C.'s version of a sergeant at arms, which they have two, and they're appointed from within. So they're again, they take a great idea and dilute it and manipulate it to their fashions, but that's fine. But your state marshal at arms can and will assist with virtually every aspect of the juro assembly. They themselves will appoint a deputy marshal at arms for the remaining three pillars. They will assist if just say if Indiana has only one state coordinator, let's say you, Christine, but you fall ill or you have to take a vacation for a few days, emergency, what have you. You step away for any other reason, incarcerated for some foolishness or whatever, just unable to attend a meeting, which people are expecting. Well, your marshal at arms is right there. And the marshal at arms also helps with maintaining decorum during meetings, virtual meetings like this. In the physical realm, they'll have a presence at your state capitol, and they would also be a part of providing internal security for that venue. Okay, and I mean, it's a really fabulous opportunity to serve in that capacity, and that is not a position that goes away or sundown like a coordinator's role.
Right.
And so it's really an awesome opportunity and is absolutely needed for all assembly. So I just wanted to put that there. If you know anybody in the future, if you can push that out, there is a nationwide network of marshal at arms, and they meet every other week on Friday, 6:30 Eastern. They do have a presence also on Mattermost. I don't know if Jeff's here on Mattermost.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay, so but anybody who might be interested in that, as Continental Marshals, we consider themselves as us as cousinry. We would don the same star, it's a 5-pointed upright gold star with beveled tips. We are marshals as they are, but the chiefs or the Continental Marshals refer to themselves as chiefs, and then the marshals at arms refer to themselves as marshals in that setting as a network. But they discuss many things. Most state assemblies that has had an established elected General Assembly Marshal at Arms are very well received, very well respected. They're constantly in the know about virtually every aspect of maintaining internal peace. They're the one of 2 internal peacekeeping assets within any state assembly, and that would be themselves and their ombudsman service. And so that would be my next question. Christine, do you have a ombudsman service in the works?
Nope.
Okay, so that would be your next and final internal peacekeeping asset. Everything outside of that is known as an external peacekeeping asset, and there's only 3. And those who oversees those 3 is also a Federation creation and is completely unique, and that's the Peacekeeping Task Force. I think the only comparable and perverted distortion of a truly honorable international peacekeeping dispatch is the United Nations. So I take great honor in knowing that I'll do my part to help to have the UN just kind of pack up their belongings and just kind of evaporate and take themselves right out of New York, you know, because they go somewhere else because we don't need you.
Mhm.
But the Peacekeeping Task Force helps to deal with primarily as you have placed into your newsletter, the continuous evaluation, subsequent training, and proper coordination of your 3 external peacekeeping, which is your county sheriffs, your Postal Area Continental Marshals, and your militia combat elements. Okay, so those are the 3. The only thing that's different, the only variable between those 3 is that there's one of those external assets has its own pillar, and that's the militia. But we can also help to expand the lawful, peaceful existence of what the militia is capable of, and that's what we spoke about earlier. Is an American press corps. Yeah, and so and the charter goes as with the Peacekeeping Task Force, on top of helping to properly coordinate, train, or evaluate, train, and coordinate, is to provide logistical support and information dissemination across the entire Earth. Another aspect of the Peacekeeping Task Force is similar to what the Continental Marshals provide in the international realm, is what Interpol provides, international police. So it's a really ample opportunity for a lot of people of your 92 counties, of the Indianans who have corrected their status, but you don't see much of them, and that's fine. That's kind of the bittersweet reality that they've corrected their status, but if they don't, maybe choose to function somewhere somehow, then it's a really slow. It's organic growth, but it's very slow, very slow without participation. And a state national, an Indiana, who's not serving it as a state citizen or county, can still serve as a state national with the Continental Marshal Service as and that's it's a huge help with the sheriff and the maintaining the peace at every county level. So it just takes recognition
Joe,
from those. Go ahead, Jeff.
Can you be a marshal if you're a juror as well?
Absolutely.
Like if you,
yes, great question,
okay.
and that's yes, yeah, and that's a
I believe you
great
said something
question,
about
Jeff.
that earlier. I'm not sure. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Jeff.
No, you're good. No, I just said that I believe I heard you say something about it earlier, and I did want to pop in and ask, but I didn't bother. But now that you said that or later on about a national can be a marshal, I was wondering, about what you said earlier. Can a juror also participate as a marshal.
Yes, absolutely.
What's the question?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So do you have multiple roles as a state national?
No. Well, just referring to that of the jury, as you mentioned, Jeff.
Yeah.
What's the potency behind that is anybody who serves as a juror, they do become a citizen only in that moment.
Right.
Only in the moment that they're serving, they're investigating a matter or they're hearing a matter within their courts. They are temporarily a citizen.
You're a
After
citizen. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
yeah. After the trial is over, very similar to many dozens, if not hundreds of people on every state who may not be participating at their state or county pillar level as citizens. There's their unique and very brief opportunity to exact justice, true justice, because they themselves are in that moment for those amount of days, they're serving the people as judges, as jurors. And then that's it. That is where true change begins to take place. Hands down, without a doubt. If you go back, if anybody goes back to even listen to the very first Federation webinars that took place, that was mentioned over and over again. The General Assembly is precisely where things. The General Assembly is precisely where everything takes place. It begins to take shape. Of course, correcting one's status is really where everything spawns from. But
right.
But yes, multiple roles, because you're only wearing that hat in the moment that you're serving at that time.
Right. Now, here's another example, more to Jeff's question, I believe, and going back to what we're referring to as a first man or last man standing on a county, someone who has corrected their status and looks around and sees no one else besides themselves. How does promoting peace and law at that level by oneself, the county level? Well, that would be someone who is that of a sheriff. But now they're in that quandary of, well, I'm supposed to be elected, and that's true. Well, if you're by yourself, you're standing to amplify peace and law on your county, but you happen to have usurpers on your county, but that's fine at the moment. As a matter of fact, I would venture to say that many sheriffs, whether they admit it openly or not, once given the opportunity and faced with the opportunity, is rooting for Americans to come in and be that one to help push things in the proper direction as they are.
Oh, I believe that.
Yeah. I've met many sheriffs. I've served in the military for 25 years. I've served along sheriffs, both on all three capacities, active, guard, and reserve. And I've met sheriffs. I've met police officers who serve out of uniform, and that's their job. And deputy sheriffs, firefighters, people who come from many families who serve in law enforcement. And they're great people, and they can and have carried this discussion where they realize, there's only so much that they can do at that moment.
But they're following the de facto orders.
Right. Yeah. So again, just generally speaking, from the outside looking into their world, I would have to say a large part of their mindset is geared towards the success of the American people. And of course, that a de facto sheriff, they have a body politic. They have people who have elected for them. Yes, they answer to a county commissioner and a board that kind of leads them by the tail on what to do and how to respond and what jurisdiction is diluted. What are the various services that are around roughshod over that sheriff? But they, by and large, they exist. They provide that service along with gross other amounts of services that the American people choose not to sign on to. And
so it's a big task.
Yeah, it's a slow going process. I mean, I'll give you just really one, and I'll end it with this. Take a break here. But one fine example of what a sheriff can do. Let's just say you, Jeff, since you're on the call here. Just use it as an example.
Right, Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh?
Right, Jeff.
Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, so let's just entertain just for a moment. Really simple. If Jeff decided he would like to take on the idea, just the notion, then Jeff would notify the state General Assembly that he would be signing in as a member of his General Assembly. He'd be the first or among many to sign in, and then he would also contact the militia assembly leadership. If you don't have one, of course, it would be your state coordinator, and notify that his participation as his county interim sheriff is entering into that role as an interim sheriff. And then the asset that we have currently is the Continental Marshal is helping to bridge and merge that effort to have every state have its own appointed state chief Continental Marshal. So that state chief Continental Marshal and all of the others within Area 4, except for Michigan, has that in Indiana at this point. But then they would reach out in their way to help Jeff on his county and every other county on Indiana have a deputy Continental Marshal that assists Jeff with outreach. Now, Christine, I don't know if you have that proposal that was sent out back in February, I believe, this year, but it was sent back out through the marshals at arms who attended the meeting last Friday. But that same proposal is now going back out. I can send it to you directly if you'd like. Okay. But it helps to draw out the various jurisdictional variations or series. I believe there's 4 series where we could help Sheriff Jeff here, just like that, or any other, with outreach. Because I get it. I totally understand it. People are entertaining these offices, which are immense. They're immensely honorable. At the same time, they're immensely take on immense amounts of responsibility. So they deserve all the assistance that they can receive properly. So that's where the Continental Marshals can assist.
And that's where I'm grateful that you're in a position now to be able to support Indiana, and so that they can, because there's a lot of this knowledge I don't have because of just trying to maintain getting everybody get their status in order so that they can even be able to move forward.
Okay, well let's have fun with this, Christine and Jeff, or anybody else listening on the other platform, or they're listening to the replay, because this is exactly where everybody would like things to take place. I don't like the idea of boots on the ground. That seems very militant. That's not what we need. But we need people to be educated, to join their jural assembly, to be a part of the jury pool. The other aspects of their jural environment, of course, is the justice of the peace. There and all the other aspects within that realm. And Christy, I'm sure you beat that drum several times as far as the other offices within that particular pillar. But and then along with the militia assembly, I have so much appreciation for what all of the pillars are capable of. Most people within their assembly can attest that perhaps most what they have seen taking place at the state assembly level is centered around the jural assembly, and I totally understand that, because that seems to be the lobby of a lot of things taking place, and that's true. But the next step would be that of the jural assemblies. If I was signing into a campus, I suppose, envisioning this, after having corrected my status, credential card, the whole thing, I would hope to be guided right over to the other side of the campus where the jural assembly is to sign in, because that literally is what would be the next step. And in Jeff's case, General Assembly focus, yep, jural assembly now, he's hearing about it, and he's entertaining the idea of being his county interim sheriff. So then he would touch base with the militia assembly and start breathing life into the sheriff, the militia assembly aspect of the sheriff. And that's it. Yep.
I mean, there's a lot that we all know that we got a long way to go, because there's just a lot that needs to be fulfilled. We got the jural assembly that needs to be up and running. We need our marshals. We need our judge of peace. I'm currently on the process of educating or re-educating myself I'm going through the jury book guide on TASA. I'm reading through it. Haven't finished it, but I'm going through it. So I'm in the journey right now of just educating myself as much as I can, so that I can take that next step to participate and see what I can, what role I can actually help in.
Sure. And we also understand that the time constraints of everybody's typical weekly day. I mean, we've got it down to where, when everybody, I'm sure Christine could even attest that, anywhere between 1.5 to 3 hours every single day is very, very commendable, and it's doable, especially when a 1.5 hours a day. And that's like you said, Jeff, just getting educated. That goes a long way, but it's really, which between 1.5 to 3 hours is between 10 and 20 hours a week, every single day. If that's how it was, spread out, I suppose, disseminated between each day. And that's a lot to ask from people who, have families, have a full-time job, and all of the stressors and all the other aspects of life, So it's completely commendable, and it's understandable if others cannot really find much more time than between 10 and 20 hours a week. But we're here to help with that. So with that same effort. And so it's calls like this, coordinators such as Christine and others from other states that have the same dedication as Christine, and willingness from folks like yourself, Jeff, that things begin to take place.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah. We can't just, we have to be honest. We have to we knew what we signed up for. If we sign up for something, and then we have to do our part. But yeah, there's a lot that we need to, we still got a long way to go, but we just got to educate ourselves as much as we can and just keep going forward.
Okay. Well, what I would expect and welcome with open arms is as many questions as, like you, Jeff, or anybody else who's on the call, listens to the call later, Christine as well. Just bring as many questions as you can, as you have. And if you would like to send them to me in an email, I will, if they're pressing, I will answer them immediately. If they're general questions, I will help to answer them on the next call. Anything regarding the Continental Marshal Service, the Peacekeeping Task, anything that has to do with someone who would be wearing a 5-pointed star on their chest. Literally any aspect of that.
Okay,
And
I will make sure to have in the email going out to send an email of any questions that they have. Hopefully we can get them to you in enough time so you're not surprised.
Sure. Yeah, and 60 to 90 minutes on a call like this every other week. Just so happens that Mondays at this time is open for me, so I'll dedicate this time to Indiana specifically.
Thank you.
And anybody have any questions at all about law, peacekeeping? I'd say law enforcement, no. Maintaining, upholding the law, and maintaining the peace, keeping the peace. That, and again, anybody who would happen to have either on a credential card or on their vest a 5-pointed star, either sharp tips or pointed tips, or bevel tips. That's my job to know those questions, the answer to those questions. And of course, if I don't have the answer to the question at that moment, I will get it immediately.
Appreciate it, Joe.
Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you, Jeff, for getting on the call with us as well. And we'll get these things worked out. So I've discovered with the technology, social media, with using Zoom, I'm not going to be able to do locals at a live call, but we still had Odyssey should have still been going, Rumble and YouTube, but I'll be able to still post the video, upload the video to all the platforms for afterwards.
Oh, wow, Christine, that's awesome.
It'll probably go up tomorrow morning or something, but I'll be able to get those up so that, because some of it won't be the full view like we're getting here. So I'll get a good edited video up so that they can see all the screenshots. Well, what there was of it. I will go ahead and also include the link to the presentation that I was going to give, mainly the one screen that was given an update on how many counties are populated, how many are in process, and there's 33 still to speak up. So that way to have that info as well. So I'll get that done by tomorrow morning.
All right, Christina, and as you're aware, we have also many presentations that we can provide as well over the course of every other week for sure. Okay.
Great. Awesome.
All right.
I'll just keep mine where it's just an update on things, so everybody, keeps an update on that, on where we stand from that aspect, and then I can always then add in your presentation, your slides.
Okay. And can you send Jeff or forward my email?
You beat me to it, Joe.
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
I kind of thought you would. Yes, because that's how we function, Jeff. And usually we're inundated with emails, but we're totally ready for that. A good portion of our mornings, 3 to 4 hours, is preparing emails, correspondence back and forth. But in this case, questions coming to you, if they're not immediate, then we'll put them in a battery of answers to provide substance to these calls. You see, in case those other people.
I'll try to get them to make sure to put like subject to include Indiana, something in the subject, so that way you'll know that it's for Indiana. They don't always like to tell where they're from.
And of course, if it's a question that needs to be answered, we'll still add that and return an answer in the email, but we'll just be sure to highlight that as well. Okay. And if we don't have an answer at the time, a thorough enough answer during those email correspondences, we'll let you know, whoever's sending the email, that we'll have to look into that, whatever the topic might be. So, and it doesn't matter what it is, regardless. I think at this point we've heard it all. We've heard it all.
I know.
And Jeff, just since the Continental Marshal Service banner is behind me, the American perfection of international peacekeeping at this level, the Continental Marshal Service is an amalgamation of the U.S. Marshals before they became a service. So before they became under the Department of Justice. So the old U.S. Marshal and the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, USPIS. If you look both of those services up, you'll know that they've had a rivalry for a long time as to who's been the oldest federal peacekeeper, and it's the U.S. Postal Inspection Service. But when you go in and see the services that they offer, in addition to the U.S. Marshal Service, that is what the Continental Marshal Service is built to provide. So just kind of look, just for the record too, anybody wants to look in, if they want to see what the Continental Marshals has to offer, combine the U.S. Marshal Service and the U.S. Postal Inspection Service together. And that's your future Continental Marshal Service.
Okay.
All right.
Good to know. I appreciate everything you got coming out and sharing with us, because we're all about self-governing and educating here.
All right.
At least for mine.
Awesome. Sure. Well, thank you again for taking the time with us, and we are definitely going to start making this a Monday night thing, because we're ready to get moving here on Indiana. I want to thank you all and have a great evening. Peace and love.
Thank you, everybody.